Welcome to Talent Unfiltered, located at the intersection of innovation and all things talent. Talent Unfiltered is presented by Intelligent and by HireWorks. HireWorks, talent forward. Now, here is your host, Ron Gauthier.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talent Unfiltered, presented by Intelligent and by HireWorks. I am Ron Gauthier, coming to you, as usual, from Chicago. Talent Unfiltered is a podcast on all things talent, meaning anything that could affect a company's ability to hire gifted, committed, and diverse talent is fair game for our discussions. You are looking at 6th Street in Austin, Texas. It's a very famous entertainment district down there, and home, at least in part, to South by Southwest. Austin also happens to be the home of our guest today. She is Cat Casey, Chief Growth Officer for Reveal Brainspace, which is a legal technology company that focuses on providing AI-based solutions for e-discovery and so much more. And I can't wait to get her take on tech in the legal space and how companies need to adjust their talent strategies for this brave new world that we are working in. But before we get rolling, I want to invite each of you to visit intelligent.com. Now, for those of you who are not familiar, Intelligent is our digital magazine. It is focused on helping solve the talent equation, and we are lucky to have a great set of contributors that include thought leaders in the space like Lou Adler, Craig Fisher, Jason Seiden, Shally Steckrell, Dean DaCosta, Dr. Tanja Coleman, and so many more. And we have a great group of practitioners who live this world each and every day, and they're sharing their thoughts on how to make the act of acquiring talent better for everyone, and that's candidates and companies alike. We offer a ton of different kinds of content, written, video, audio, and we have some very special segments called Into segments. And those are 2-minute, very digestible pieces of content with actionable strategies that you can use right now. As we like to say, we believe we have something for everyone from the C-suite to the street. So come check it out. It's intelligent.com, INTALEGENT.com. And once you're there, drop us a line. Let us know what you would like to see on the site. We'll do our best to try to accommodate you. Again, that's intelligent.com. Now, this show is available on Spotify, Buzzsprout, SoundCloud, and there is a video version, which some of you are watching right now. So if you dig what we do, then like, subscribe, and share on whatever platform you happen to be catching us on. And don't forget to turn on the notification buttons so you never miss any new content from us. All right, let's get to it. Our guest today is Cat Casey. She is the Chief Growth Officer for Reveal Brainspace. They are a legal technology company that provides AI-based solutions in e-discovery and so much more. She got her bachelor's degree at Harvard, her law degree from Pepperdine, and prior to all of that, she was actually a recruiter. She was also the Chief Innovation Officer at Disco, which is a legal technology company, and she has, as I mentioned, a significant background in recruiting. She may also have the most compelling Tic Tocs in the legal industry. Kat, how are you today?
Well, I have to admit, I take second place in the Tic Toc dumb, but
to who? To who?
Alex
I don't know.
Sue. He kicks my rear.
Oh, well,
no,
yeah, I don't know. You seem to have some pretty good ones, man. I've followed you for a while. I'm really glad that we're getting a chance to connect. My practice clearly is in the legal space. It's one of the areas that I've spent a lot of time in, and I'm always interested to talk to people that I think are focused on innovation, because I think your background lends itself to being so much more than just an innovation or a growth officer, right? You're an attorney, you've recruited people, you understand talent, and you clearly get the technology stuff. So what I want to do before we get started is I have what we call 5 quick questions. This is for people to get to know you. It's rapid fire. Don't think about it too much, and let's get going with that. So first, how did you get the name TechnoCat? Where did that come from?
You know, it was actually pretty intentional. I spent about 15 years as e-discovery cat, and I found that e-discovery is a niche in legal tech that is spreading into other areas of technology. And so I kind of rebranded myself because I talk about evangelize. I'm a little fixated on all things technology to kind of supercharge you. And so I did a rebrand about
I like it.
6
I like
months ago.
TechnoCat. I think it's interesting. You said you were going to start a podcast, correct? You have a podcast getting ready?
I am. I've already had like 4 people offer to be my co-host, and I was like, I got to start it first.
Well, when you're ready, let us know, and we will make sure that we're promoting it. Your biggest pet peeve, what is that?
Complacency. Honestly, it's because I think in terms of innovation, which is, improving talent, improving operation and process or improving actual technology, complacency or an unwillingness to ask the question, can I do this better? It just gets under my skin.
Excellent. I was hoping it wasn't being asked what your biggest pet peeve was. Your favorite band?
Metallica.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Really? Okay.
Metallica,
See,
yeah.
I did not see that coming. I did not see that coming. On favorite food?
Chocolate.
That's I think most people, that's at the top of the list for them. Next time you're in Chicago, go to a place called Mindy's Hot Chocolate. They are a dessert place. They're over on Damon, I believe, here in the city.
Right.
And they have a thing called Mexican hot chocolate. Just order it. It's the best. Homemade marshmallows. It's the best thing you're ever going to have. And finally, quick questions. Book you're reading right now.
What am I reading? I'm reading like 10 books, and I'm drawing a blank for
You got to pick one.
I've got like a blue ocean strategy one I'm reading. I've got a biography I'm reading. It's a couple of them. I'm the worst.
Okay.
I should be reading Now Discover, though.
There you go. There you go. All right, so let's get going here. We only have a limited amount of time today, and I really have a lot that I want to ask you. So in March, you wrote an article called Innovation in a Time of Crisis. And in that, you said that during rapid times of change, and I'm quoting you here, and uncertainty, there is a strong desire to hunker down and ride out whatever conflict is causing the crisis. But during a crisis, more than at any other time, it is critically important to ignore this instinct and continue to fearlessly adapt and innovate. Why? Because it's easy to get bogged down in the scarier aspects of uncertain times, and and the crisis there is often a wealth of opportunity that accompanies any situation like that, any crisis. So innovation seems to be a driving force in your life and your work, regardless of what the world is experiencing at the moment. And when you look back at the past 17 or 18 months, what do you feel has been the biggest innovation that you can trace back to what we all just went through, and how do you see that impacting us going forward?
I think it's more of a cultural shift to virtualization, a willingness to allow people to work from home, but not just that. Like in my space, there has been like a steadfast holding on to wanting to physically review data in a room with no windows with 500 people hunkered together. There's been a shift, and that shift has enabled a couple other things to then in rapid succession happen. A move to allowing cloud-enabled technology, a move towards embracing AI, and a move towards using new types of communication that are going to dramatically and forever impact how people look for evidence, information, and insights. And so that's going to further feed into this innovation. And it's a really fascinating time.
Yeah, it's, we see it in every space. In my company, we work in a number of different areas. Legal happens to be my area of specialty, but you see that change in thought, in the when, where, and how of work. Some industries, and I think law firms tend to fall into this category, struggle with the idea of figuring out how to virtualize what it is they're doing and how to change that dynamic. And if you go back, and I'd love you to comment on this, if you go back and you look at a couple of years before the pandemic, firms were really struggling hiring associates because nobody wanted to be on that partner track. And they looked at it, as my good friend Jared Correa will say, a lot of these folks just look really angry and they look really stressed and upset.
Yeah.
And so when you couple the kind of the unattractive nature of the partner track, along with what we just went through proving that everybody can work remote, how do you see that part of the industry changing, or do you see it changing at all?
Well, I think the word that you use, prove, kind of is the key thing. Like there was an 18-month proof of concept that virtualization works. And so everyone's saying, oh, it'll be less efficient, disproven. Oh, we're going to lose company culture, disproven. And the other thing is it proved to individuals that are the workers that they can be just as efficient and impactful remotely. And now, as some organizations are saying, hey, back in the office now, if that's not the way you like to work, people are now making what's called the great reshuffle. They're switching roles and they're going to an organization that can meet them where they are. And that's not to say that back in the office is miserable. Like some people love that and thrive on it. But if it's not in your DNA, people know there's another option because it's been proven. And so I think what we're going to see is a hybridization of virtual in on office, on-prem, and some sort of combination of the two.
Yeah, you look at tools out there and companies out there that are making this shift to the virtual environment. There was tool called Esquify that XDD bought. Drew Stern and Scott, I knew those guys pretty well a few years ago, and it was interesting because it really made remote depositions and some of the control issues that people had, it made it much more feasible. And then you look at tools like eDispose from the guys over at Array. That's a tool that that's one of those functions that people thought had to happen face to face. I think the practice of law will always take place in a person-in-person environment, but there's definitely room for a modernization of that. I think the challenge, and I don't know if you agree with this or not, but I think the challenge will be to get people my age who grew up doing the business one particular way to leap forward and go, okay, well, this can be done another way, and I'm actually going to end up happier, down the road. Do you have any thoughts around that?
I think we as people have gotten better at remote, right? So I've been doing remote off and on for my entire career, like 17 years. And it was sometimes they'd forget to call you in for the conference call. They wouldn't have a video chat. The audio would be like, right? And
Can you do that impersonation again? That was really good. That was
right. And like now you do have hiccups, like someone who's in the bathroom when they should be like not on video, or like the cat lawyer saying, "Oh, I'm not a cat." I think it would have been funnier if I had said that, but neither there. But in general, like it was a trial by fire, and we all went through it together. And in that time of uncomfortableness, as we were learning new tech, we did it together. And so I think people of every age group, from judges on the verge of retiring to folks mid-career like me and you, to baby associates, all made the pivot. And so I think that the barrier to embracing tech to facilitate virtualization is dropping.
We were all so scared of it. We were all so worried about what was going to happen that along the way, being forced to do that was actually trial by fire. That was probably the best way, the best way to get it done. Okay, so staying on this this talent idea and advances idea, when you look back in your time at the industry, how has it changed since you entered the e-discovery world with LexisNexis Applied Discovery? What do you think the biggest shift in the types of people that companies are looking to hire is, and why is that?
I think I felt like a real imposter early in my career because I went to law school, didn't practice. I studied existential philosophy, not technology. So I was at this intersection, and I didn't play well in either culture. And I evolved a skill, and I think a lot of us that were early entrants into e-discovery evolved the skill of being a translator, kind of being nimble and adaptable. And that went from being you're a square peg in a round hole to hey, you're that unicorn-shaped person that fits just right. And because of that, I think there's been a shift in an appetite for people that are at that nexus of tech and business and so many other things that is fundamentally different from when I entered. It's not two separate cases. It's really good to be that sticky hub in the wheel.
I've seen, ironically, one of the reasons that I love being in the legal industry so much is really twofold. Number one, you see changes happening in this that are modernizing what's going on, but you also realize that there's still so much room for improvement because it lags. Law firms in particular are tech averse. They're risk averse. They don't want to do anything that could potentially be problematic for them. And because of that, service providers, technology companies like Disco and Reveal, Epic in some cases, they've kind of been forced to lag behind, to really wait because their clients weren't necessarily ready for this. I think that this particular situation may have caught a lot of people off guard in that now they have to go. And as these candidate preferences of I want to be remote, or I want to be hybrid, or I never want to see you, I like being alone, right? That kind of thing, as that begins to become more pervasive once we do open up, I think companies are gonna have some challenges. So do me a favor, put on your recruiter hat, go all the way back to your executive recruiter days early in your career. Why do law firms, and not all of them, but a good number of law firms and legal tech companies, they really struggle to hire in a more modern way? Okay, they don't really have modern processes. So what's your advice to those companies out there who need a fresh infusion of talent in terms of how they should revamp hiring, or the skills they should really be focused on acquiring to compete in this new environment?
I think part of it is that you have more careerists in law firms, which means you've got people that came in and they've been doing this for a certain way for 10, 15, 20 plus years. And they think what got me here will get me there, because for 142 of the last 155 years, that was true, right? But the pace and velocity of data and of change and of expectations of clients, all of that has dramatically shifted in the last decade. And so I think what needs to happen is not a reshuffling of who has the role, but an adding, an augmentation of people from outside of law, potentially from a tech company, younger folks who maybe have a not pure legal background, but have some understanding of the lexicon. And, you need to probably have a look at your executive committee who determines what the hiring profile is. And, maybe it's not all the people who, went to my alma mater. Maybe it's a mix of people who have diverse backgrounds. And by diverse, I mean, maybe it's they did 5 years running a business and then they went to law school when they're older. Maybe they're a paralegal who put 25 years in, got their JD, and then are great associates. So it's kind of about shifting that perspective and shaking up people who are very comfortable. And I've always done it this way.
Yeah, that is such a great point, because I think inherently human beings are creatures of habit. We abhor change. We want to do things the way we've always done them. We don't want to have to alter it if we don't have to. I think what's interesting about this, and this is kind of off the path of the questions I was heading down, but I think that there's a gigification of what's going to happen in this space, particularly in the practice of law. You look at the explosion of contract attorneys, and that's driven in part because of changing candidate preferences among younger demographics. I would ask you, do you think that companies in the legal tech space need to get rid of this idea of domain experience? You see it happening in financial services companies. They're moving away from it because they realize that the widget is not as important as the building of the widget many times, and that they can teach somebody the domain, but they can't teach them how to code in Ruby. They can't teach them how to code in .NET C# if you're a relativity person. They can't do those things. And every company is a technology company to a greater or lesser degree now. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think you're partly right and partly wrong. I don't
like being. I want to be all right. That's kind of.
I know. I don't think you need to have that deep domain for every role, but you need enough of them that you can get advisors that have actually been the one coding the documents, been the one drafting the contracts, to give you the context on what the workflow is, to make sure you're not building things that are engineering marvels that are sexy as heck, that attorneys are like, but this isn't the way I do it. This doesn't work with how I function. So it's about, again, that diversity of experience, having someone who maybe is from Google, maybe someone who grew up on the recruiting side, and then maybe someone who did 10 years at Sullivan Cromwell, and using bits of all their insights to then inform as you develop your tech, depending on what role they have. I read a really great article, I think yesterday, saying, firms that are run by legal tech firms, former attorneys kind of sometimes get lost because they get too myopic, right? So you don't want only a lawyer's view, but you don't want to be a pure tech company, because there've been a couple in our space that were private equity backed out of Silicon Valley. They made some stuff that Silicon Valley thought was really exciting, and then it just kind of fizzled, because when it came to the practitioners, it didn't work the way they did or think the way they did. So you need a little both.
Yeah, it's always interesting to me when attorneys make the jump to places like this, whether that's in business development or whether they become what would be the equivalent of a business analyst, being able to pull requirements and understand what that looks like, and then translate those to people who can then go out and code. I happen to think, and I think this is where we differ. I think that understanding needs to come at the architecture level. If you want to get real technical about it, I think it happens at the architectural and the scoping end of it. But the coding is still coding, right? And if somebody's a good ex-developer, they may have an opportunity. But you know what, honestly?
Oh, I would agree. I think there's certain areas, it's strategy needs to be informed by practitioners, but execution, you just want best of breed, right? And best of breed might be a wonderkind who's been coding for an unknown startup application, right? You want to have, I think that's where legal tech has fallen behind. Tech companies aren't okay, lawyer, non-lawyer, or you wouldn't call Elon Musk a non-automotive engineer. You know what I mean? And I think that there's a misperception of myopicness in legal, that there's legal practitioners, lawyers, and other, and there's not as much value for the other. And I think we need to start looking at just business professionals, engineering experts, coding experts, business development experts, and then have enough legal domain in there that you don't get too far off the path.
Yeah, it's fascinating to talk to somebody who lives it every day. It's very easy to sit here on the outside and armchair quarterback it and go, well, I think you ought to do this, right? But at the end of the day, there are vantage points that you have that I think are really valuable for our audience to hear. So I've been in legal tech in the services space since 2005. I started with Xantaz, was the very first company I ever worked with, way back in the day with Introspect, right? And I was brought in to fix a talent issue that they had on their collections and hosting side. And unfortunately, to a large degree, I think the industry operates pretty much like it did in 2005. There's been some technical advancement, but not as much as I would have thought. You are an expert in innovation and change, so I want you to put your futurist hat on and share what you think this industry is going to look like 5 years from now and beyond.
I honestly think that we're on a roller coaster. Have you ever been on like a roller coaster? You're about to go on that first big dive. So you're going up, it's like click, click, click. You're
just so you know, that's where I pass out. So like right as you begin to go, I'm like, well, I'm gone. So I have no idea what the rest of the ride is like at all. So.
But like that's where we are in terms of the velocity of technology adoption, and like COVID accelerated it. And what I mean by that is like we're about to get to a point for a couple of reasons where tech becomes the default, right? Tech enabled becomes the default. I don't mean just e-discovery. I mean practice management, timekeeping, contract analytics, knowledge management, all of that, because we're moving away from making it big and scary and complex, like say the black boxes way back in the day that needed statisticians and analysts and all that stuff. We're moving to iPhone easy, Google simple. The most powerful AI on the planet is easy enough a 3-year-old can use it, right? And I think that's what's happening with technology and legal. And we're moving to a point where you're not even going to think about, oh, I'm doing the AI workflow. I'm just using stuff that gets me better information more quickly. And as we get there, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, it's just going to be baked in the same ways it's baked into my mobile phone and the applications I use 20 times a day.
Yeah, it's that's such a concise way of putting it. It's, I've worked with companies that are focused on things like proportionality, that are really looking at that hard. A company called Inside Optics that's out there now, and they're doing some really fascinating things. The inclusion of AI in that, I think, in analyzing custodians would make it even better, but I understand kind of their product roadmap and where they're trying to go. And I think people are beginning to put that innovation hat on and beginning to think about, how can I make this better for the end user? And that's really what it's all about. Because for so long, and again, I'll default to you on this, but for so long, this was about how many documents could I collect? How many documents could I host? Yeah. Right? And how long could I host it? Because every month it was recurring revenue. It was like an insurance policy. The industry's changed so dramatically, in that way. And so as we wrap up here, your advice to the CEOs out there, the founders out there who are beginning to think about solving for a particular problem, an innovation, that maybe AI is applicable, maybe it's not. But what would be your advice to them as they begin to figure out, here's what I think I ought to do, here's how I think I ought to do it? What are the key problems that you think they ought to be solving for?
Well, I've got a twofold suggestion. One is, don't build on a foundation that's immovable. Build planning to evolve. So whether it's the foundational linguistic structure or AI or platform, build it planning to lift in better tech over time, because otherwise they're going to be antiquated in 5, 6, 7 years just based on the velocity of improvement in that underlying tech. And the other is, think not so much about point solutions, but about comprehensive solutions. Like if you look in e-discovery, there shouldn't be 10 companies doing 10 different tiny cuts of the steps, right? We should start looking to build an ecosystem that solves all the problems. And not talking about the perfect one, but like that is more baked in, because people don't want to have to think about it. I'm going to push from processing to the e-discovery platform to layer in the AI to whatever. They want to be able to just be one spot, not overthink it, and just get the information they need to start building their case.
Yeah, it's the whole purpose of software is to remove friction in any process, right? And unfortunately, when you bolt on 15 different kinds of software, you've got 15 different kinds of problems, and not always do they play well together in the same sandbox. Kat, thank you so much. TechnoCat, thank you so much. This was a great time. I really enjoyed talking with you, and I think our audience got a lot out of this. You know, the fact that you can meld technology and talent and look at that in that way for the legal space is something that I think we sorely need in this, because it's going to come down to the people you hire, how you attract them, and how you retain them will be a huge part of your success going forward. Kat, thank you so much for taking time with us. All right. Okay, we'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely.
All right, take care. All right, that's it for today. An absolutely huge thanks to Kat Casey for taking time out of her schedule to share her thoughts and insights with us today. As someone who has spent a lot of time in the legal industry myself, I would suggest that we need more people like Kat, driving the industry forward through a relentless pursuit of innovation. Now, if you like what we did here today and you want to stay up to date, then like, subscribe, and share on your platform of choice. Don't forget to turn on the notification button so you never miss any new content from us. Until next time, stay safe.